Sometimes even us as adults, before you know it, you're out there mixing potions with your kids. It's actually pretty fun. And I think it's such a great, engaging, screen-free activity as well.
Hello and welcome to Demystifying Child's Play. I'm Ruth Verco, and today I'm joined by Shelley, a mum turned product designer, because when she saw a need, she decided that she was the one to meet it. And that's why she's brought to life the Happy Tap, a push lever tap fitting. When you think like a water cooler on the fridge, that's where kids can access their own water with no taps being left on and no accidental face shots. For my kids, I know that happens all the time. She's also a massive water play advocate, as you may have guessed. So today what we're going to do is take turns going back and forth through the top 10 play schemas, sharing about how you might observe your child exploring the schema through water play and some fun water play ideas that you can use with the schemas also. So welcome, Shelley.
Thank you for having me.
I'm looking forward to getting straight into this. So let's get comfortable, whether you're out on a walk, catching a rare moment of quiet, or multitasking around the house. Let's dive on in and explore water play. And remember, if you want to come back to these notes, they're all on the blog, which is playschemas.com/blog, which is playschemas.com/blog. Okay, Shelley, let's start with you straight away. So we're going to start with enclosure. So enclosure is when you're wanting to have a boundary around something. So what would you say for water play?
I think a big one for us is just watching the joy of the kids filling up containers and watching, the water be enclosed within like these spaces. I know, especially for the younger ones, they find it really fascinating. Tipping into things and watching the container fill right up and watching it overflow and like really getting like an understanding of the space and like what each container holds. I find that's really even fascinating. Seems like such a small thing, but it's really engaging, especially for the younger ones, I find.
That is so true. And if you're listening in, what you'll find with all of these is you'll be going, actually, what Shelley's just said is about seeing how much is in every different container, which is maths concepts and it's spatial concepts and it's all this different learning. And that's what we love about play and about knowing the play schemas, is because every little thing that kids do is actually helping their bodies, their brains learn and develop, being ready for so much more complex learning. And it starts right down at this early age. So just something as simple as having containers and tipping water from one to the other is learning so much and is developing their brain so well. So that was enclosure. So I'm going to now go to enveloping, which is very close to enclosure. Enclosure is when you go around things with boundaries. Enveloping is completely covering. And what I was thinking with this one is underwater. So this is where you can have your tubs filled up a little bit deeper. And the kids, if they've got the Happy Tap, if they've got the hose, they can fill them up themselves. And then they can play underwater animals and dive and have them underwater. So they're enveloping, they're having whatever they've got completely underwater, which is really fun. And it's really fun for them to be able to see things from different ways as well. Okay, so we've done the first two of the top 10. Next, what would you do, Shelley?
I think disconnection, which is like a really interesting one, because I guess we probably sometimes wouldn't necessarily think about how that is with water. But the cool thing about water, which makes it so fun, is it can stop, it can start, and it's so fluid, and so it moves all around. And one of the things I love watching the kids is even just using their hand to stop the flow of the water and watching how like it spreads across everything. I think turning things on and off as well is really such a fun one. And that's like a special one. I guess that actually, to be honest, that's like an obsession of the 18 months. Turn it on, turn it off, turn it on, turn it off, and just constantly they sit there 40 minutes and they're understanding how it's all working. And it's such a fascination. And you can see how they've got such a drive to explore how these things are working and the extra understanding and all the thinking that's going on in their brain. And it's so awesome and so fascinating to watch as well.
I had to laugh when I heard you saying about the turning on, turning off, turning on, turning off, because currently in our bathtub, we've got one of the bath crowns and we've drawn a line in the bathtub because the boys have discovered they can turn the taps on and off in the bathtub and they will fill it to overflowing. So now we've got a line in the bathtub to say, okay, you can turn them on and off, because I was deciding that fighting against them was just too hard. Put that line in so they know that when they get to the line, that's when they need to stop. And having that lines are amazing in parenting. It just helps so many things. We've got that physical boundary. So yes, disconnection, that on off is so important and so good for that brain building, and having that sense of control, as I think will be a theme throughout all of this, is water play is so great for kids being able to control something and learn and develop through it. Okay, so after disconnection always has to come connection. So this is where things go together again. And this I've already mentioned is that pouring from one to another. It's reconnecting the water. It's seeing that flow and then being able to connect it back to that cup and then the next one and the next one. Another one also with connection can be having the different states of water. So you've got the steam, you've got the water, and you've got the ice, which is really cool. If you've got some ice that you've got in the freezer, you could have a bit fun putting some petals in it or coloring it, bringing it outside and seeing how it melts and then connects into the liquid water, which is mind-blowing for little kids. And again, such an amazing concept to be able to work through play. You're not sitting down and saying, we're going to learn about the states of matter today. We're going to learn about ice. What you're doing is you're letting them just discover it on their own, discover it through play, which is so much fun. And it means, again, they'll be invested and engaged so much longer in play, having that control over it and having that sense of wonder and discovery. Okay, Shelley, so let's go to trajectory. What would you say for that?
Oh, I think this is a big one for water, especially all different kinds of water as well. Like, I mean, in our home, the kids love the sprinkler, which I think is a good one for that. I mean, you got the water flying everywhere and it's so much fun, lots to run through. Even just the fascination of watching the pouring, watching the water flow and how it moves and the directions that it goes. And that's the awesome thing about water. Obviously, it has so much movement and it's so fluid. So that's another thing where they're really like getting that control and that wonder of being able to see what they are doing as well. Like, I do this, water does that. And I guess that, and as well, I've never actually thought about it too hard, but that's probably one of the awesome things about water is that it generally behaves the same in all these different situations. So they get to learn every time that they're doing a movement, the water will behave in the same way. And that's such a cool learning for them because they get to see, okay, I do this, this happens. And a similar thing is happening every time, which is such like a reinforcement for their learning and helping them understand the world around them. So I think that's really cool.
And trajectory is that movement and motion. And that's what I also love is thinking about the sprinkler and then thinking about water guns as well, is that you've got the water that is liquid. And so it can be done in so many different states and having different forces put behind it means how far it can go. So we've got some water guns and the boys absolutely love spraying each other, which they know they can only do that if they've both got one. Otherwise, they've got to spray plants or we've got a wooden fence, which is great for spraying because you can see all the different spray marks. So having that trajectory, as you said, is such a key one for water. Kids love seeing that flow and that movement. Okay, next then I'll go to positioning. So positioning, I think of the lining up different cups of water. And so this again goes back to what we've said about being able to pour things from different containers. Quite often what you might see is your child getting all the different containers. They might be raiding your drawers inside at home, hopefully plastics, not glass if you're bringing them outside. And then they are just positioning them. They're filling them up. They're getting them all ready. And you might think they're about to go do this elaborate play with them. But maybe if they're thick in the positioning schema, all they're wanting to do is actually line it up. And that is their play. And that's one of those things through the play schemas is once you understand what they're doing, some things that you might not think of being play, you can see, oh, they're not actually just setting up their game. This is very much part of their brain needing to connect and learn. That's the positioning schema. Okay, let's go to the next one. Let's think about transporting.
Oh, I think transporting is going to be right up there for water play, especially in our house. I mean, I don't even know how many times I watch my kids, they fill something, they move it, they tip it out. It might be so simple as like fill, even just tip it straight out. And they just love that. It's another one of those ones where they're feeling in control. They can do what they like with it. They can carry it where they like, tip it where they like. And I think even like what we say, tipping from one vessel, then tipping from that vessel, then tipping from that vessel. So transporting things across like multiple different vessels as well, not just from one to the other, but then the next to the next to the next to the next. I think that's obviously such a strong urge, especially in my kids, I find. And obviously one thing I find really cool about the schemas is, watching the different ages go through different ones. And even within like the water play, you'll see, the kids, like my daughter at sort of 18 months too, she was in transporting. That was like her thing. She's still quite strong on it now at 3, but at 2, it was an hour of transporting just one thing to another to another. So obviously there's so much they're learning in there and they're so engrossed in it. It's really amazing to watch it too. So that's a really fun one, I think.
And what I love about the transporting one is seeing all the problem solving goes on. I've seen a lot recently. My boys have really loved filling up water balloons with the tap. So they found some balloons that we had and they've been filling them up with the tap, but then they're not wanting them tied up because they're wanting them to spurt out, but they're having to figure out how to hold it and then transport it and move it to where they want it to then spurt out. And generally they use it to fill something up. So they've got this transporting where they're moving it from one place to another, but they're also trying to think, how can I transport it where I'm keeping the water in this? And same with filling up buckets and different things. As they get older, they've got that skill of being able to keep the water in more. As they're younger, the water just sloshes around. but they need to have that experience because that experience is helping them figure out how they can carry it without it sloshing around. Maybe they've got less in there, maybe they go slower, maybe they need a different vessel to hold it in. But it's amazing just seeing, and you sit and watch and observe what they're doing, all that brain cognition that is going just for a simple task. You think, oh, I walk around with my cup of tea all day, there's nothing transporting liquids around. But for them, it's new. And the more they do it, the better they get. So yes, they'll get wet to start with, but it will get better. Okay. So then I'm thinking about rotation. So rotation is rotation, going round and round and round. So again, I think of sprinklers, especially the rotating ones, which is so much fun when the kids can jump over them as they rotate around. And also just watching that water being poured, you've got that tumbling of water. It's just like when you're watching a waterfall and you've got that piece and it just goes and goes and goes. When the kids are able to pour from one place to another, you can see if they can pour things slowly and how long it can take to get from one to another or how fast they can. So you can do lots of different things. And with water play in general, as we've said, Shelley's saying that her kids are playing for an hour on their own, which is amazing. You've got that independent side, and then you've got that family play side where you can come along your kids and have fun as well. Again, you'll probably get wet. And to be honest, the more wet you get, the more fun your kids will have. But you can actually put things in as well, some challenges. So they are just playing and you can let them just play because that is amazing. But you can also put things in saying, oh, let's see how fast we can move from one place to another without spilling. Or let's see how slowly we can pour from one thing to another. So you're putting in a few little challenges where they're still playing, but you're helping them move their bodies and make connections in their brain in such a different way. Okay, next let's think about transformation.
Well, I think this is the key one in our house at the moment. I love that transformation. It stays around for a really long time. Much older kids. I mean, we have some 8-year-old kids even come over, and they are still deeply in transformation. And they still want to make potions. They will still want to make mud pies. Transformation is how the materials, you put two things together and then what happens. Mixing things together and seeing what you create. Like obviously mud pies comes, we all know that. The mud kitchen mud pies, take some dirt and some water and we mud, which is so fun. But there's so many other things that I think can really extend water play for older kids that have done a lot. They've done a lot of the play with just water, and it's really cool to be able to, what happens when we put bubbles in, what happens when we, put some food coloring in, what happens when one of the things we like to do, which is pretty much why we made them, is we like to make foaming bubble explosions, especially for my oldest son, because he finds that really, really fun. Watching a reaction happen. So we can do that in the water. We watch a reaction happen and we can play with it afterwards. And I think that's just such an awesome one for water play that you can do in so many different situations. And it's quite easy to set up a couple of items, flower petals in the water. Or it could be simple or it can be complex as well, which I think is really cool. And if sometimes even us as adults, before you know it, you're out there mixing potions with your kids. It's actually pretty fun. And I think it's such like a great, engaging, like screen-free activity as well. That's like another huge thing for me is, they're outside and they're playing and they're having so much fun and they are engaged, especially when we put transformation on. It's so engaging to make mud pies and they're learning so many other things. Like I often think about it with cooking. They're obviously not cooking, but they're pretend cooking. They're making soups and they're making teas and they're making this. And it's really fun. Even it's quite like an easy way to be a parent too, because you can just sit at the cafe basically and they're making you teas and making you pies and delicious, and you can be involved without having to be right in there, and they're having so much fun. And I think they're learning so much with that one as well.
Yes. And when you were saying about making those bubbles and seeing the explosions, I could just hear those excited giggles and laughs that the kids get when they see those things happening. And that's the joy of childhood. As adults, we know that when you put these two things together, this happens. But for kids, sometimes it's their first experience, which is amazing. And even if it's their 500th time, it still sparks so much joy. And again, you're saying about the 8-year-olds being involved in it. Some people think, oh, they're over 5. They've got to school now. They don't need this type of play anymore. Oh my goodness, give a 16-year-old some of these bubbly, fizzy things and some water and they'll have a blast too. So it's just getting the kids outside and giving them the chance to have these experiences. I also love about the flower petals in our garden. We've got lots of veggies growing. We've also got flowers, and I specifically grow calendula and pansies for the kids to pick. They calendula are amazing for picking off petals, and pansies are great for just having lots of different colors. And they're edible as well, so you don't have to worry about your kids eating them or putting them in their mouths. But the kids know they can go and pick them. They add them to things all the time, and they love it. And I just recently in the weekend gave a bowl of corn flour to my kids and said, go get some water, go play with it. And again, they were playing for over an hour, picking petals, making some bloop, just having so much fun. And so again, just add water is so great. So we've done transformation. So now we're on to number 10, which is orientation. So orientation is looking at things from different angles. And this one is simply looking at the water from different angles. It can be really interesting to lie down on the grass and have someone pour water next to you in a bowl or straight on the grass. If you are in summer and it's not too cold, you can watch it from the top, you can watch it from different sides and just see how this movement and motion happens. You can see it when it's turned on really hard, how hard it goes, when it's turned on soft, how it drips. So you can see this water in different forms, which is really cool. And I think orientation is great in so many different ways for your brain to be able to just understand. Also, even if it's raining, going outside, lying on the grass, if it's warm with your raincoat on, if it's not, and watching the rain fall down is such an amazing experience that not all kids get these days. We used to play outside in the rain all the time, and now not so much. So a challenge to you, if it's not freezing cold, letting them just go outside in their clothes and running around and playing in the rain, because that is definitely one of those hallmark parts of a childhood. So we have rushed through these top 10 play schemas, but through it, I'm sure you will have heard how play schemas and play is naturally with the kids, but how if you understand these play schemas a little bit, you as an adult can join in the cafe, you can join in the mixing and making, you can have lots of fun as well, having that fun time playing with your kids. And also how understanding them can really support schema play as well. For if you've got those connecting and disconnecting or transporting, how you can work your kids together. If you've got a transporting kid, they could be the one that gets the water, bringing them to the one who's positioning and lining them all up. So once you know everything, it really works. What I want to do now is kind of jump into a bit of a part 2 of this because Shelley has developed this happy tap, which is out soon. It sounds very exciting. So firstly, Shelley, where can we find you? But then can you tell me a bit more about this happy tap?
So you can find us at happytap.shop. So that's actually got different spelling. So that's HAPITAP. And we're also on Instagram, and you can find us at happytapofficial as well. Pre-orders are probably closed by the time this comes out, but you will be able to join a waitlist if you are keen for the next one coming up.
So this is just for New Zealand currently, is that correct?
Yes, right now, just in New Zealand, us being Kiwis, I think just makes it easier to have it in our own backyard first. Ideally, we would love to get it out around the world for everybody, but for now, we're just in New Zealand, so you'll just have to watch this space if you're overseas. Sorry, guys.
I highly recommend if you are overseas and you would like one, message on Instagram, because I'm sure if you message her, that might mean your country gets a bit of a bump up to when you're going to be able to get them to your place. So do message her because I'm sure she would love a message. So how did you come to designing the happy tap?
It all really started because I think my son, he was so drawn to water. It was almost, he couldn't not have water every day, almost, to put it like that. And he was, when I only had him, I could sort of manage it just. But, when it came to having to put my second child, having to try to put a baby down for naps, and when you're out of the room for longer than before, he would make it a mission to get water, whether I had given it or not. And this would include dragging tables to the benches, climbing up. And he was actually just trying to carry it outside most of the time. But on the way, as you know, transporting when they're little they're not that great at not spilling it. And so it was spilled the whole way. I mean, every day I was mopping, every day. And I was often thinking, it's not that I don't want him to have water. I did want him to have water, but we live on rainwater where we are as well. So that was another major one. So it's actually not a possibility to just leave the hose running for him. It wasn't possible for us. And so I needed a way that he could get the water, but that it couldn't constantly run all the time. And another huge driver, I think, was that my son, he's a really high energy kid and he always wants to keep going. And he finds, he's very easily frustrated. And even if we put TV on, he might watch it for half an hour, but he would just turn it off. And he would go outside and just disappear. I mean, he's the runaway child. He would sometimes, I would be doing something and I would come and look where he was sitting and he was gone. He had just left because he was bored. I'll just go do something else. And when we, set up our first prototypes, just watching how happy he was just playing, calm play. I think that's another huge thing that we haven't really touched on. Um, the emotional regulation for my boy when he played with water was huge. It was a huge difference I noticed. And I not just water, I guess, but activities where he was outside, where he was in control of the play that he was doing, where it was like totally free play. And when I say totally free play, I mean like he wasn't trying to build anything. He wasn't trying to draw anything. He wasn't trying to even create anything. Because that always came with visions he had in his mind. So he would get frustrated if it didn't turn out how he wanted. And so it was such a relief for me because it was such an stress in our house of always, trying to find activities that didn't end up in a massive tantrum, because actually a lot of them did. And for me, having him calm after play was so awesome compared to, if I wanted to do something and I put the TV on, well, I was going to be paying the aftermath of that because the behavior afterwards was off the wall. So it was such like a revelation to find an activity that he was engaged, but actually he was still calm afterwards. And, I love to hear as we go the feedback through, but that is just like such an overarching theme. I feel that the water, even me, like just hearing running water, it makes me feel calm. It's just like something about the water. It's like naturally calming. And I think in all situations, just letting the kids touch the water, play with the water in whatever way that might be, they'd feel it's just naturally calming, built in.
That is so good. And I know that, they always say with kids, with babies, if you're having just a really hard time, just add water, whether it's water outside, whether it's water in the bath, whether it's water anyway, it definitely calms people down. As you're saying, also us as adults, if we're just feeling a little bit like, oh, this is too much, just listening to the water, listening to that play, generally there's that spark of giggle and enjoyment when they're doing, you're like, okay, I can do this day. We're okay. And so that's so important, being able to provide your kids with water play and provide them in a way that's safe, where they're not trying to walk over, inside, bringing all that water outside, where they're making the floor all slippery, or where they're leaving the tap on and suddenly being on rainwater, you've got no water for your baths or cooking that next night or for your hot cup of coffee. So having something where they can actually work and have that control, have that enjoyment, have that play, where they're not needing you. They can have you, because it's really important to play with our kids as well, but it's also really important to give them that time where they're just being creative. As you've said, they're not having this vision of something they're going to build and it's not quite working. They're just playing, which is so great.
And I think another huge one as well, which actually I didn't realize until afterwards. Wow. But the great thing about having something like the Happy Tap set up is it's ready. So for me, I always struggled, like a big setup and stuff that wasn't something that I necessarily found easy. Like I already felt overwhelmed. There was so many things to do, so many activities, and I often would feel like almost like paralyzed, like where do I even start? And I think, it was so simple. It was like a tap just sitting out there. It had a couple of cups and a few things, and I could leave it like set up for the day. So, which was really awesome because my kids they might come and play for half an hour, then they would just go away. And it wasn't something I needed to remember, oh my gosh, the tap's still on. It has happened. It has happened. And they could just come back whenever they felt like, which I actually felt was really cool as well, because obviously a paddling pool and things where the water is standing, one, it would get really slimy. But then also when my daughter was crawling, I was really like, I know it was fun. It's so like fearing like that she was going to fall into it. And so like that's another, major thing that I feel is like awesome, making that water accessible because there isn't the standing water there. So there's like, it's not so slippery and it's just sitting there and it's dry when they're not using it, so that's like another awesome thing that I think that I'm really excited to bring as well, is that to make that water play just a little bit easier, so that the kids, they can get all the benefits and we can let them out there to play, except I don't feel like I'm having to like stand over them like a hawk, and I'm allowing them to do that independent play if that's what they want. And I find that it's also great because, like you said, it builds their confidence because they can do it by themselves and then they can transfer that across to other things. Maybe they're finding something more tricky, but because they've been able to do it themselves, for other activities, they're going to keep carrying on. They're like, okay, I can do this. And I think it's little things like that. You're giving the kids more control in places where it's safe and where they actually can have control. It actually has such a big impact in other areas of their life. And I feel like I noticed that, in particular with my son, who would struggle to persevere with things if they weren't going exactly how he wanted them. He always wanted help. Like, I need your help. I need your help. When he actually didn't need my help, he just wanted my help. So I think, thinking about those activities where we can like push the kids to try a bit harder, to go a bit longer, like all these little things we can add into their life that give them, autonomy over some of the activities that they do can help them in those situations where maybe they do feel a little bit overwhelmed.
Teaching that perseverance is so key and something that's so easily not done these days because we've kind of got that microwave society where we want something, we get it now, and our kids just expect things to work. So having that perseverance, being able to keep going, keep trying, doing things on their own is so key. Thank you so much, Shelley, for sharing about the Happy Tap today. I know that from what I've seen, this is so exciting, and I think it's going to become a household name really quickly because it's one of those things that you've seen, you've designed, and you've solved a real problem that a lot of us parents have where we want water play, we want all that outside fun time. But that tap and that water usage can be a bit of a headache. So it is so exciting seeing this coming forward. Do you have any one final thought you want to leave with parents?
One of the things that always sticks with me is actually when I was talking to lots of my other mum friends, and I could tell that actually there was a lot of us were like overwhelmed with activities. And I think that we would see, everyone's setting all these awesome activities up on Instagram and all of these things, and I would see them and they look so great, but actually I felt that I could never actually get in and do these things. And of course we wanted all the benefits for our kids, that all these awesome messy activities, messy play and all of the things that they bring. But sometimes the thought of cleaning up the mess, it was just a bit overwhelming. And it wasn't just me as well. I realized it was quite a lot of my other mum friends. And when I showed them, this solution, a lot of them were like, oh, wow, I don't want to do more water play just because I can't deal with it. But if you gave me a way that I could give the kids the water play, but it was just a bit easier for me to handle, then, I actually would do it. So much about this as well is making it easier for mums too, but, making that access for all of the kids to be able to, play with something that's so fun, that's outside, that I know is actually going to help enrich them and give us mums a little break too, because, we all want to have a tea that's not cold.
Yes to that completely. So again, thank you so much, Shelley, for coming on. Everyone, remember today is a great day to play, and especially with water, because wet kids dry really easily and water play is great. So thank you for joining us today, and I'll see you again next week.